I'm not content to merely capture the world. I want to change it. Hello, and welcome to Visions of the Past, an Assassin's Creed lore podcast. My name is Andrew, and I'm glad to see that you have found this podcast. Today we're going to talk about the man who gave us that quote about himself, Leonardo da Vinci. Why Leonardo da Vinci, you ask? Well, the quick and easy answer is because he's a big part in Ezio Auditore's life, and because that we find him in Assassin's Creed 2 and its novel Assassin's Creed Renaissance, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood and its novel by the same name, the Facebook game Assassin's Creed Project Legacy, the animated short film Assassin's Creed Ascendance, the mobile game Assassin's Creed Identities, and Assassin's Creed Reflections comic book. But it's not just him being a friend of Ezio that makes him an important person. Leonardo in his own right was an important person in Assassin's Creed lore, but in also history. Leonardo himself is considered a polymath or a universal genius because his knowledge was spread across so many different fields. He was not just a master with a paintbrush, but he was also well versed in anatomy, sculpture, architecture, along with numerous other subjects. Leonardo is often used as the archetype to describe a Renaissance man. If you're thinking, well, yeah, he's a Renaissance man, that's when he lived, you would not be wrong, but at the same time, you wouldn't be 100% right either. The term Renaissance man was, according to Merriam-Webster, first used in 1906 to mean a person who has wide interest and is an expert in several areas. Leonardo was said to have an unquenchable curiosity and a feverishly inventive imagination, leading him to study so many different areas. Historically, Leonardo was born either on the 14th or 15th of April in 1452 in a town of Vinci, which was then part of the Republic of Florence, to Piero da Vinci and a peasant woman by the name of Caterina, out of wedlock. Leonardo would study under the Italian painter Andrea del Verrocchio and would spend much of his early career working for Ludovico il Moro in Milan. Later in his career, he would work in Rome, Bologna, and Venice, and he would spend the last 3 years of his life working in France, where he would pass on May 2nd, 1519, and forgive my pronunciation, but Leonardo would pass at the Chateau de Clos-Luce in Amboise at the age of 67. Through his life, Leonardo would paint the Mona Lisa, the most popular portrait ever made, the Last Supper, the most reproduced religious painting of all time, and Salvator Mundi, which sold for a world record price of $450.3 million US at a Christie's auction in New York on November 15th, 2017. It's not just these pieces of art that he's known for, though. Leonardo was also able to conceptualize flying machines, an armored fighting vehicle, and concentrated solar power. While few of these designs were built in his lifetime, as the techniques that would be needed to do so would only be in their infancy during the Renaissance. That does not mean that nothing that he ever thought of would go unproduced. His automated bobbin winder and a machine for testing the tensile strength of wire both entered production during his lifetime. He is also sometimes credited with the invention of the parachute, helicopter, and tank. He also made substantial discoveries in other fields, though he didn't publish his findings. So these led to very little to almost no direct influence on the sciences of anatomy, civil engineering, geology, optics, and hydrodynamics. Within Assassin's Creed, though, we don't meet Leonardo until he is 24. By this time, he's already set up his own workshop in Florence and was titled a master by the Guild of St. Luke. At this time, he was already patroned by the Auditore family, and on December 26, 1476, Leonardo had his first meeting with Ezio Auditore da Firenze, when his mother Maria took him to Leonardo's workshop to help take some purchased paintings to Palazzo Auditore. While this meeting would spark a lifelong friendship, they would not see each other for 4 days, when Leonardo would help to repair the hidden blade that Ezio retrieved from the Palazzo Auditore after the imprisonment of Ezio's father and brothers. After repairing the blade, a member of the Florentine Guard showed up to interrogate Leonardo about where Ezio would be. going so far as to throw Leonardo to the ground and start kicking him. Ezio, though, would use the newly repaired blade to kill the guard and end the attack on Leonardo. The two would not meet again until April 1478, when Ezio would take a codex page to Leonardo to decipher, like he did with the one that held the blueprints to his hidden blade. This time, though, the codex page held new assassination techniques for Ezio to try on some dummies that Leonardo would have set up by a man by the name of Vincenzo. While Ezio was out practicing, Leonardo would build for him a new hidden blade to be used on his other wrist, allowing for Ezio to use two at once. After helping Ezio put it on, Leonardo would direct him to where he could find a man by the name of La Volpe. After the failure of the Pazzi conspiracy a few days later, Ezio returned to Leonardo to have him translate another codex page that Lorenzo de' Medici found in the archives of Francesco de' Pazzi. This codex page, though, contained the design for the poison blade, and a few years later, in 1480, Leonardo would be commissioned to do some paintings for a Venetian noble, who would pay for him to move his workshop from Florence to Venice. On the way, though, a wheel on his cart would break, stranding him in the Apennines Mountains. Ezio would meet up with him here to help him fix the wheel, and on the way down the mountains, Ezio and Leonardo would discuss Venice, along with the machine of Leonardo's that was in the carriage. On the way down the mountain, they would be attacked by men that worked for the Borgia. This would lead to Ezio jumping from the carriage to allow for Leonardo's escape. Leonardo would meet back up with Ezio on March 3, 1481, in Romagna to board a ship headed to Venice. While Leonardo would have a pass to enter Venice, Ezio would have to save Caterina Sforza to gain access, though he would not know who it was until the ship left, and Leonardo told Ezio just a little bit about her. When arriving in Venice, they would be met by Alvis di Veldino, who would give them a small tour of the district that would include the local market, Palazzo della Seta, and Leonardo's new workshop. Leonardo would spend the next 5 years working in Venice until Ezio would once again show up on his doorstep on September 14, 1485, this time wanting to use the flying machine that he brought with him from Florence. He wanted to use this machine in an attempt to fly to the Palazzo Ducale and save the Doge Mocenigo from assassination by Carlo Grimaldi. At first, Leonardo would be hesitant to test because of the dangers the design posed. Ezio, though, would insist, and he wouldn't make it very far from the tower he jumped from. While Leonardo would be excited about the test, Ezio would complain that he didn't go far enough. Leonardo would sit in front of a fire and realize that heat from a fire made burned paper float, and suggested that setting fires across the city and flying over them to get to the palazzo. Ezio would do this and make it all the way to his destination, though he would destroy the machine on landing. After his failure to save the Doge and assassinating Carlo Grimaldi, Ezio would become public enemy number 1 and returned to Leonardo's workshop about 3 months later with a codex page and asked if Leonardo had a spare mask that he could use for Carnevale and to hide his face. Leonardo would make the hidden gun from the codex page that was given to him, and then give a mask to Ezio and point him to where he could find Antonio di Magallanes. Before Ezio could assassinate the new Doge, Marco Barbario, Leonardo would also inform him that Ezio's old love, Cristina Vespucci, was attending Carnevale with her husband, but he told him that it was probably not a good idea to visit her. Leonardo wouldn't see Ezio again until midsummer 1488, when he would inform Ezio that after studying a few copies of codex pages that were delivered to him, that there was a secret message on the pages. After talking to Ezio, he found that it dealt with a prophecy that Ezio's Uncle Mario had told him years ago. During the conversation, Ezio realized that it was this reason that his father and brothers were killed. After retrieving the Apple of Eden, Ezio would take it to Leonardo in an attempt to learn what it does. After being able to explain the apple, and then seeing what it did, Ezio and Niccolo Machiavelli would agree to safeguard it in Forli, while Mario Auditore would invite Leonardo to see the Auditore Villa in Monteriggioni. Leonardo would take Mario up on this offer and stay in the villa until 1499. While here, he would become interested in the paintings of Pythagoras and finding the Temple of Pythagoras. Leonardo would manage to create a map that he would write out in invisible ink and hide them on the backs of 7 paintings, which were to be hung in the villa. Before the villa fell to the Borgias in January 1500, Leonardo would be pressed into service of Cesare Borgia, who would force him to design several war machines including the gun that would be used to kill Mario during the attack on the villa. 2 years later, Leonardo would be able to find a way to talk to Ezio in Rome and explain to him that the Borgia were having him build machines and warn them that they have the apple. Ezio would then ask him to rebuild hidden blade items that he had fashioned before. Leonardo would be able to do this, as he never forgot a design, though Ezio would have to pay for the material. Over the next year, Leonardo would direct Ezio on where to find overseers for his war machines, and explain how Cesare rose to power, as well as build hidden blades for Ezio's recruits, along with a reinforced glove, poison dart launcher, and parachutes for Ezio. After Ezio retrieved the apple and Cesare was arrested, Leonardo would meet him in the assassin hideout on Tibber Island, where Ezio explained that the apple needed to be hidden away. Though Leonardo disagreed, stating that hiding it away was like hiding a masterpiece, he didn't oppose the decision. Ezio would part with his friend by giving him a bag of florins, which Leonardo would initially refuse, saying that if it was goodbye, then he didn't want the money. After Ezio assured him that he would meet him again, Leonardo took the bag. While in Rome in 1506, Leonardo would make contact with the cult of Hermes and frequently visit the personal library of Ercole Massimo, the leader of the cult. While doing research on Pythagoras, who Leonardo found had dealings with a piece of Eden that we now know was the staff of Hermes Trismegistus, Leonardo would be kidnapped by the cult, who wanted the location of the temple of Pythagoras. While taken to be interrogated in the catacombs that led to the temple, Ezio would catch up with him after finding his location with the help of Leonardo's apprentice Sali. Ezio would kill everyone in the room that was not Leonardo. Despite being injured, Leonardo wanted to explore the temple with Ezio, and once reaching the final chamber, Ezio would recognize the place as an Isu vault, and his DNA would end up communing with a pedestal and reveal lines of coordinates. Ezio would feel that it was best to be left alone, but Leonardo, as ever curious, wanted to learn what was going on in the temple. Ezio, though, would be able to distract Leonardo by asking him about his future plans and to walk him out of the temple. After this ordeal, Leonardo would survive an assassination attempt on his way back to Florence with the help of an assassin by the name of Lo Sparvero. Leonardo would travel to Spain with Ezio and Niccolo Machiavelli in their hunt for Micheletto Corleone. After a long trip that seemed to have nothing but issues, Leonardo would decide to return to Rome, leaving Ezio and Niccolo with a number of bombs that he had crafted for them to destroy Borgia warships. After Ezio finally saw to Cesare's death, he would invite Leonardo to join the assassin order at Ezio's 48th birthday party. Leonardo would decline, stating that while he respected and supported the assassins and their goals, he wanted to tread a solitary path. In 1513, Leonardo would travel to France and spend his last years in a home awarded to him by his employer and close friend, King Francis I. After sending Niccolo Machiavelli a letter about his deteriorating health, Leonardo would be visited by Niccolo and Ezio in April of 1519. During his meeting, Leonardo would speak of a desire to visit King Henry VIII of England, who was interested in his design for a submarine, though he would reveal to his close friends that he was dying. Ezio and Niccolo would stay with Leonardo until his death on May 2, 1519, both being present when he died. On their return trip home, Niccolo would recall a rumor that he had heard about Leonardo dying in King Francis's arms, which Ezio would spit on the ground and remark, "Some people, even kings, will do anything for publicity." I have to admit that seeing history through the prism of Assassin's Creed is always a highlight for me, and seeing Leonardo da Vinci is no different. While often portrayed as naive, he stays true to his curious nature and always wants to know how things work. Before Assassin's Creed 2, I only knew Leonardo for two paintings, the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper, as well as his Vetuvian Man sketch. I have no idea that he designed so many things and was so interested in so many different subjects. After reading on him and his life, it became so apparent to me on why the leader of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was named after him. One of my favorite scenes in the whole series includes Leonardo, and every time I see him repair Giovanni's blade and then tease Ezio about cutting off his finger, it's surprisingly funny to me. Seeing Ezio and Leonardo essentially grow up together, even though Leonardo is something like 7 years older, was a nice touch considering Ezio's story. Looking back on Leonardo in the series today, I don't see how anyone else historically could have taken his spot. And he was a perfect friend for Ezio. Thank you for joining me today. Feel free to subscribe to the podcast. And if you have any questions about Assassin's Creed or topics that you would like me to cover, please feel free to hit me up on Twitter at visions_AC, a link to which will be in the description of this podcast. Until next time, my assassin friends, make sure to follow the creed. And those Templars that may be listening, may the Father of Understanding guide you.